Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor and his friends give you sports betting tips. I'm your host, Professor Sides, and this college football episode covers middle of the bowl season bowl games, all the bowls happening from December 20th to December 26th of the 2022 season. In case you're new here, check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new for some explanations, goals, and community rules. As always, remember there are no locks in gambling. What Cousin Jared and myself will do is make at least one pick on every game, all at 1 unit each. There are also picks given on the website and Patreon plays of the day that I also recommend at an extra half unit. The compilation of those results can be found both on BetStep and in the Google Sheet. The links are in the show description. That Google Sheet also contains the full set of projections. And for early access to those, hit up the Patreon. The link is in the crawler below. That's also where you can access the Discord chat. That's the best place to get questions answered about these games or other ones that are coming up. We can always chat about those if you're interested. But as always, take what you like and leave the rest. Lastly, please understand that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as we'd like to see, we'll be profitable each and every day. That is an impossible reality for any gambler. Cousin Jared, starting off the bowl season strong, 2-2 on totals. We've got another total happening pretty soon from now. It's Monday late morning right now, so we have another total coming up. 5-2 on the side play so far in bowl season. I kind of feel like we should take our money and get out of Dodge. 5-2 on bowl season. I don't know how you beat that, right?
No, it's going to be very, very tough to beat, but we're going to try because we are going to pick every single bowl game, people. And so we're going to give you lots of good picks today. And I think that you'll see a pattern emerging here that during bowl season, it might be a good idea to just take some points. However you can get them in whatever amount you can get. Taking points is usually a good idea.
Yeah, with a couple of obvious exceptions, and we'll talk about those. Not many in this episode, but there's a couple of those exceptions. One of them was that Oregon State-Florida game, which when we talked about it on show, we were talking about line was like 10.5. It was like, I just don't know what to do with that. It's just a big number. It dropped below 10, and if you saw on, I don't remember if I put that one on the website or if that was just on Patreon, but that was one of the plays of the day on Saturday was laying a number like 8.5 with Oregon State. That was obviously really easy. Yeah. Those opt-out situations are the weird when like half your team opts out. Talking about Auburn. We were talking about that earlier.
Auburn and Houston.
Auburn. Yeah, the Nevada one last season with the same thing happening. Like, some of those get a little bit weirder, but otherwise it's North Texas, right? Just take the points and just be like, you really don't know what's going to happen in this. So having a bunch of points in your back pocket makes a lot of sense. I think our strategy might shift a little bit more for the later games when it's a little bit more discrepancy between the teams, a little bit more innovation. But in these early ones, it's kind of like just take points and roll with it. Because I agree with you. I think I really do like the picks we have in this. I think there's a lot of good ones here. Quality of the games, a little bit to be lacking. I mean, I feel like we're not going to, we never want to lie to the people. We always want to be straightforward, honest. We never hide anything, right? These games kind of suck. I mean, just to be completely honest.
Yeah, no, they do. You've got a handful here. You can cherry pick a few of these games that you really want to be tuned into. The rest, spend time with your family over the holidays. Watch a Christmas movie. I can give you some recommendations if you need. But don't invest a ton of time in some of these games.
Little inside joke for the 100 people who were with us last season. We've obviously got a much bigger audience now, so a bunch of people probably not get that joke. I was going to say, to some extent, right, I'm going to watch probably all of these games. That's just what I do. I know some of you will watch all these games as well because it's football and we love it. If you want to spend some time with the family, with some friends, catching up on some, self-care, whatever, this isn't a bad week to do it because next week is when you've got 4 games a day kind of stuff. And that's when it's going to get kind of crazy. So we're going to cover all of the games next week in a show about 7 days from now. This one just got the intro this week. Again, not a lot of great games, but it's football and there's some good money-making opportunities here for some various reasons that we'll get to. But before we get to that, some reminders, please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And if you turn on notifications, you won't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. I've already mentioned the Patreon, but check it out if you haven't yet. Lots of great benefits to be found over there above and beyond what we do here. Membership starts at just $3 per month. You can get there by www.patreon.com/pickswiththeprofessor. But even if you're not there, we're still thrilled to have you here. All lines courtesy of BetOnline. Sign up link in the show description. And current as the time of this recording, it is about noon Eastern on Monday. We've already got the Monday game in the previous episode. It's about to kick off. So we're going to get to Tuesday, December 20th, Eastern Michigan versus San Jose State, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 local time kick out in Boise, Idaho, in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Eastern Michigan and San Jose State, to our knowledge, nothing significant with regards to players out. Of course, let's just start throwing some shade here 5 minutes into this episode. Nothing significant with regards to who's actually playing either, right? I mean, not a lot of talent on both teams. Two very meh football teams. Right now, the number on this one is San Jose State minus 3.5. Sideline says it should be 4.5. You know, I've got San Jose State ranked 82nd, Eastern Michigan 97th. If you forced me to pick a side, I'd grab the points with Eastern Michigan, especially more than a field goal. But I don't really trust either one of these teams. Instead, the pick that we're going to suggest is the under 52.5. Weather-wise in Boise, there's snow that looks like it'll be coming more in the evening. It's just going to be cold. I'm not sure how much that's going to affect things. It's just going to be a very, 20-ish degree type afternoon, cold weather. Because, Jared, why else are we on the under 52.5?
Well, it's just north of our one of our favorite key numbers there, 52. That's a big thing. San Jose State has been a heavy under team all season. I don't see a reason why this would change. Eastern Michigan has definitely had times where they've been able to put up points this season, but that would just be so far out of character for what we've seen from San Jose State this season. So you mentioned with the points, I would lean towards taking the points too. I mean, two not great teams. We just talked about the benefit of taking points in a bowl game. But I feel a lot more confident that, greater than, 53, 54, 55% of the time, this game's going to go under a number like 52.5. I just don't see there being many points in this one.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think you got a little bit more coaching experience on Eastern Michigan coming into the bowl game, if that matters. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Another reason maybe potentially take the points. But I'm like you, I think the stronger play between the two is just taking the under here. 52.5 is a little bit high. 52 key number, 51 a kind of key number as well. So being on the north side of that makes a lot of sense. We're going to grab the under there in the Tuesday afternoon Potato Bowl, which takes us to Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern, Toledo versus Liberty. Toledo is a 3.5-point favorite in the Boca Raton Bowl at FAU Stadium in Boca Raton. Obviously, you have the Hugh Freeze situation at Liberty, who's left to take Auburn. Because, Jared, you were telling a story about that, about how mid-season apparently he was just like, maybe I'm out, maybe I'm not, who knows, and who knows how that affected the end of the
it was after they beat Arkansas, and they were asking him about it post-game, and he was basically like, if Auburn comes, I'll probably talk to him. And so Liberty, I'm not sure they covered another game after that. And so I think that Liberty might actually be in a position to play a little bit better now that kind of black cloud and that distraction is no longer there. And I mean, they ended up with Jamie Chadwell. I mean, obviously he's not coaching this game, but I'm not convinced that that's not a good trade for them.
Yeah. You've got a couple of players out for them, one of their linebackers, defensive linemen, and not a ton that I think is going to really affect things. You might drop the number about a point. No real situations for Toledo that we're aware of at this point. Sideline says that it should be about a pick 'em, maybe make Toledo a slight favorite. And again, if you ding Liberty just a little bit for losing a couple defensive players, maybe you should say Toledo minus 1.5, maybe 2. 3.5 just seems like too much. We're going to grab the field goal with Liberty at plus 3.5. I don't trust either one of these teams. We've talked a lot about Toledo this season. They kind of zig and zagging all over the place, and at times they've had some games where they've looked really good, and we've backed them, and they've made us some money. We've had some games where we backed them and
we looked like
felt
idiots.
like they looked like idiots. And watching them, thinking we've invested in this team, and they look like they're stuck in neutral. They just can't get it going, or have games where the defense just can't do anything. I don't trust them at all. I'm not sure Liberty's that great. It's just hey, you're getting plus 3.5. I mean, money line I think also makes a little bit of sense here because I don't really know what to expect. The weather should be nice, but it just should be a coin tossy type game. I'm not really sure why we're getting plus 3.5. Because, Jared, what else do you have for us for why we're taking Liberty plus 3.5?
Well, we're taking Liberty plus 3.5 because I completely agree. Not sure what's going to happen in this game. When we looked at the total, Liberty was kind of all over the place. They gave up points to bad teams. They didn't give up points to good teams. Where does Toledo fall on that when you expected Toledo to have a good offense and then their offense would just
sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't too, right?
Yeah, and so really you just kind of got scared off of the total there. I completely agree. Getting 3.5 points in this type of game, I think is valuable, and I really think that Liberty might be playing better than they did at the end of the season with the cloud of Hugh Freeze gone. Not that he was a bad coach, just the distraction of having to him answer so many questions and knowing that he's probably talking to some other teams right now. I think they could probably step up, but I think getting 3.5 points is a pretty solid play.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll take us to Wednesday night, a late game, 9 p.m. Eastern, South Alabama versus Western Kentucky. South Alabama 10-2 on the season. Southern's got them ranked 55th. Western Kentucky 8-5. Southern's got them at 62nd. A little bit of a disappointing season for Western Kentucky, basically, coming off of last season. I mean, you can't really shape it any other way. The next team we're talking about, another disappointing team, little foreshadowing to the next game. But Western Kentucky still a solid team, not that far behind South Alabama. You have the situation with Western Kentucky quarterback who enters the transfer portal but has now opted to come back. I guess that's exciting. It's good, obviously, for them. I don't know how much of a distraction that was, but I mean, the bottom line is he's like their whole offense, basically. I mean, he makes that run. That doesn't mean they don't have a competent backup. We don't really know. Doesn't mean that, that sort of thing. It just means that he's been so pivotal to their success. Having him back, without him, I'm not sure they stood much of a chance, but with him, that obviously helps a lot. This game's going to be in the Superdome in New Orleans, so no concerns whatsoever about the weather. We're going to grab 4.5 points with Western Kentucky. Sideline says it should only be South Alabama -2. Cousin Jared, why else do we like the Hilltoppers getting so many points?
You mentioned they got their quarterback back, and I think that is going to be a big boost for them. And we talked about this before we came on. This feels like two teams that like to make the other team uncomfortable and play the opposite style of what their opponent wants to play. I have no idea how this game is going to play out. And that's kind of what took us off the total on this game. Is I could see this game being, 21-17. I could see this game being 31-34. I have no idea what's going to happen in regards to the total. So I think getting over the key number of 3 and over 4, I think provides some value, and just say either way, especially if this is a low scoring game, 4.5 points is pretty valuable. And if it gets higher scoring, maybe it lands at a number where 4.5 can still get us a cover. So I like this Western Kentucky team. They haven't been blown out very many times this season. I think they can keep it close. So I think 4.5 points is a good play.
And similar to the previous game, I think money line plus odds makes a lot of sense. Stay tuned to plays of the day on the website on Patreon, because we'll probably be putting a little bit on some of these money lines with just games that we're just don't really know what's going to happen. So if you don't have a clue and kind of say it's toss up and you think it could happen, grab it a plus 140, plus 160, plus whatever. That makes a lot of sense. To your point, because you're with a total, this number right after lines were released, right after it settled, this total was at 54.5. It's currently at 55.5. One of the most key number cultural, 55. And I think if that doesn't just perfectly symbolic of about this total, going from one side of it to the other and still not having a clue either way. I think that's exactly kind of what you're saying. It was just like, a lot of times you see a 55.5, you're like, maybe let's go under. You see 54.5, you're going, let's go over, maybe, right? How key that number is. Yeah. But I couldn't tell you, because I just don't know what these teams want to do. They've played so many different teams this year that really gear towards slow down defense, speed up offense, and the games have just been zigzag all over the place.
Yep, they have.
Don't really know. I'm fascinated to see how it plays out, because I just have no idea. And that's part of, again, the reason why getting 4.5 or, again, the plus odds on the money line just is too good to pass up.
Yep.
To Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, Air Force at Baylor. And this game's going to be in Fort Worth at TCU Stadium. There's some rumblings potentially that some of the Baylor players aren't excited to be there. I don't know how true that is. I don't know how much that's rumor. I don't know how it's true. I don't know if that's a small segment of the locker room or a big segment of the locker room. But, when you have a 6-6 Baylor team coming off a conference championship last year, a Sugar Bowl victory last year, and now this year is playing a bowl game at a stadium they go to once every other year, their rivals stadium, who's playing in the college football playoff that they've never been to, that they've been on the doorstep of several many times and just can't get there themselves. Weather, just down the road for me. And at first I was like, I might go down to that game. Not a chance I would go to this game. The temperature is going to be like in the single digits, the wind chill, and then negatives. It's going to be windy. I mean, you're talking about 20 mile an hour winds, up to 40 mile an hour gust. The weather is going to be miserable. So if there's any bit of not wanting to be there, I feel like that's going to, this is one of those where it could get really ugly with regards to the weather and the motivation.
Yeah. If you're interested in the under in this game, I would recommend pausing this video now and going and doing that right now. And then coming back because it's dropped quite a bit in the past 24 hours. I think it's probably going to drop quite a bit further.
Yeah, and we've known the weather was going to be bad for a while. I remember hearing, again, this is my literal backyard, Fort Worth. The stadium is, under an hour from where I live. We've been hearing for the last 3 or 4 days that we're going to have as cold temperatures as we've had since the big winter storm a couple years ago with all the drama around the power grid and all that other stuff. If you pay attention to any of that, if you live in Texas,
that's another show. That's another show.
It's another show. It's another show that we have not done yet, and probably never will. And so it should be bitterly cold. We've kind of known it for a while. The fact that the totals hung on this high for so long is a little surprising to me. We locked 46 right before we came on. I mean, probably 10 minutes before we came on, and then in the 10 minutes later, it's already down to 45. I mean, I don't even know by the time this gets out. I have no idea where it'll be. We've already mentioned that to our Discord people. We already said, hey, y'all go get it. So again, with the benefit of being there, $5 a month, get you a lot of great information like that. By the time this gets out there, I don't know. 45 is a kind of key number. 44 is a pretty key number.
Yeah, thinking this through though, with the wind being like that and being so cold, maybe the most key number is 42. Maybe
I was going to say 42 might be
field goals, maybe more touchdowns than anything.
Or, and hear me out, Baylor's lost 3 games this year because of extra point mishaps. Maybe 41 is key because maybe there's an extra point in there. I'm still playing the under either way. This weather is going to be miserable. Air Force wants to hold on to the ball. They like to run. That shouldn't affect them whatsoever. I'm nervous as a Baylor fan. As you can see on screen, we're going to grab the 4 points of the Air Force. We're going to take the under 46 as well. Cousin Jared, please make me stop talking about this game.
Sure. Air Force, I feel like this is what Air Force does in so many of their bowl games. They just possess the ball and they get 3.5 yards every play, and they make it really difficult on the other team. To your point, a team that maybe isn't exactly interested in being there, after they just, have to defend the triple option for the 15th time in one drive, they're probably like, you know what, I've got better things to be doing. So I could just easily, even if Baylor comes out and plays well, I can see this being a close game. But I can see many scenarios where Baylor's just like, you know what, I'm good. I'm not exactly excited to be here, and I'm really getting tired of this guy, diving at my legs, which is illegal now, but they still do it a little bit. I think that Baylor, there's lots of ways that Baylor could just be like, you know what, I'm not too excited to be here right now. And to get 4 points to the Air Force, I think is really valuable, especially in a game where, like we said, this game could have like 31 points, and I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I think Moneyline also makes a lot of sense here. I sound like a broken record. This one will almost assuredly make it into a plays of the day come Thursday with regards to a good plus odds Moneyline pick. I could see Air Force winning this one pretty handily, or I could see a tight ball game. Either way, I still think Air Force +4 is a fantastic investment because Baylor running away from this is not impossible. We've seen Baylor sometimes surprise people in bowl games and play much better than we thought they would. And in that scenario, maybe Baylor runs away with it. I just don't think that's extremely likely. I think the more likely scenarios are either a tight contest or Air Force wins by a lot because they are excited to be here. The temperature is not as big of a deal for them in the mountains, and it's a huge deal for all these Texas boys who know. I'll tell you, we do not like the cold. I'm just going to say
no. I think both of these plays are probably our 2 favorites on this entire episode.
Yes, unfortunately. One last thing to know, Baylor fired their defensive coordinator. There's all sorts of drama around that if you want to look into it about the why and how some of that played out. I don't think that's going to make the Baylor defense worse. They took a big step back this year. We kind of expected that based off of the loss of the personnel, but with Aranda being a more defensive-minded coach and kind of having more of his stamp on the defense, I don't really think that's a problem. I think the defense will be quote unquote ready to go. I think the biggest issue is going to be, are they ready to go with the temperature, which is nothing the coaches can control. And defending against the triple option is very difficult, as we often talk about. If you don't have the right motivation, the coaching staff can do everything they can, but are the players going to buy into the prep needed to defend the triple option? And sometimes, even if you prep well for it, it's still sometimes really hard to stop if you don't see it all the time. And that's kind of the fears. It's not about the coach. It's more about just the system, the temperature, the motivation, all these other factors really not in Baylor's favor. So again, we're going to take Air Force +4, and we're going to go under. Again, the current number we locked in right before we went on is 46, at least at the time. Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern in Shreveport, Louisiana, just down the road from Lafayette, a couple hours. Houston will be playing at Louisiana I put at Louisiana in the Independence Bowl. I am giving, as with Baylor, I gave Baylor a half a home field advantage, about a 1 point because of the closest from Waco to Fort Worth. In this one, giving Louisiana about the half home advantage, about 1 point in the model because of the kind of proximity. It's not going to be a full home field advantage, but a little bit. They should have a few more fans there. Also, their fans maybe a little bit more. They tend to travel fairly well in state. To this one, probably a lot of alums in Shreveport from Louisiana. Yeah,
and I can almost promise you very few Houston fans making the drive to sit outside in Shreveport in this weather. What you just mentioned the day before, the weather in the Baylor Air Force game, the weather in this game, not going to be pleasant either.
Not going to be pleasant either. Also going to be very cold, potentially windy. So it's some of the similar weather. The sun will be out at least for the first part of this game, going down by the end of it. But again, just a similar rough weather situation here. Houston is a 7-point favorite. Sideline on this one says that it should be Houston minus 2.5. Houston's a team we faded 8 times this season and went 6-2 in those games. We backed them 4 times, only 1-3. What all that adds up to is a 3-9 record against the spread. A very disappointing team. One of the more disappointing teams all season. So we're going to grab the 7 with Louisiana in a game where Louisiana does have their second and third string quarterbacks playing. They played both of them in the season finale against Texas State. Their main guy is out, but Houston's defense, by all accounts, ranks so bad, we don't really think that'll be too big of an issue. And so we're going to grab the 7 points here with Louisiana. Cousin Jared, tell us more.
Yeah. So a few things on this one. Number one, you just mentioned the record when fading Houston. So that's been a profitable endeavor all season. Not sure why it would change now. Houston's defense is so bad that I originally saw the number of 58, which I believe is what the total is at right now, 58 and a half. And I was thinking, I want to play over this number. But then we also talked about the weather. The weather could be really bad. Not sure I want to invest in a total at that point. But my reasoning, I think, still stands that Houston's defense is so bad that they can make a backup quarterback who played well against Texas State. Houston's defense is so bad that they can make a backup quarterback look pretty good. And so I think either way this game goes, if it's low scoring, you got a touchdown in your pocket, you feel good about that. If it gets higher scoring, I think that Houston's defense is so bad that they're going to have a really tough time pulling away from Louisiana. So all of those things put together, I believe that getting 7 points is a really good play, especially, again, considering fading Houston has been, wonderful all season.
Yeah. With regards to the total, I think you said it kind of well. It's kind of like what earlier just talked about. I have no idea what to make of it. If the weather was better, I would be going over this number in a heartbeat. It was higher. I'd be going over that number as well. Total's been dropping because of the weather, but I don't really feel great about going under given how bad Houston's defense is and how good their offense is. I don't want to take anything away from them. They do still have a good offense, right? And so you just don't know how the weather is going to play into that. It's two real competing, it's not strength on strength. It's not offense versus defense, but it's strength on, you would expect Houston to be in a high scoring game versus strength of weather is going to make it low scoring game. And I don't really know which way that plays out. I do wonder if the weather drops this total at some point, maybe it drops it so far that we say the defenses are so bad there still will be enough points and we go over depending on how much it drops. But it has to be a lot because given how bad the weather is, I want to be very confident about the over because weather can kill any total. But again, we have seen sometimes cold weather games have a bunch of points. We saw them at the end of the last week of the regular season, some cold weather games having 60 some odd points in them. So it's not a guarantee really.
That may be one where you want to look the morning of the game. What time is this game? 3 p.m. Eastern. This is something you might want to check at like noon or 1 p.m. before the game kicks off Eastern time there, because I think people could watch the Air Force and Baylor game the night before and be like, holy crap, this game has no chance of going over, whatever the total is for Houston, Louisiana. And it could drop like a rock at that point. And so maybe right before kickoff is the time that you'd want to say, maybe look at the over.
It's not a bad idea, especially something to keep in mind about the direction of the wind. Exactly how strong the wind will be is going to be key. The stadium there in Shreveport is a north-south stadium. So if we do end up with more north-south winds, that's not going to matter quite as much to the total. If it's strong east-west winds, though, it's still not something that I would want to go over. Right now, the winds are projected to be out of the northwest. So more of a diagonal, harder to say. And so it's one of those where just depending on exactly how things shift around, we're still about 4 or 5 days out from now, if it shifts more sideways, more east-west versus more north-south, that could also affect your thoughts too. So check the total, check the weather, that last second thing kind of before the game. You might get an edge there. For now, just not really worth an investment, but getting Louisiana +7 makes a lot of sense. And if we do think that the weather is going to drive the total down, you have to assume that's going to drive the spread down a little bit because a lower scoring game means it's easier for Louisiana to cover. And so getting the 7 earlier in the week here, probably a smarter idea before it drops to 6.5. All right, that takes us to Friday night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. You got to be one of your favorite named bowls, the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa. Every year, all the jokes about what a Gasparilla is. Obviously, Twitter is like kind of like a dumpster fire, obviously, but there are so many good things about it, and one of them is all the Gasparilla jokes that are surely going to come to us Friday night. The sun will be down by the time this game starts, and it's going to be a little chilly in Tampa. We're talking about temperatures dropping into the 40s for this one. So not just a guarantee that the weather is nice. That's kind of why we're off the total on this one as well. Better weather kind of sets up to be one thing. Colder weather, it's harder really to say. You do have strength on strength. Wake Forest, good offense. Missouri, pretty good defense. You have weakness on weakness. Wake Forest, no defense. Missouri, not a really good offense. With regards to who is playing, not really anything too key. Missouri is out one receiver. They are out a couple of defenders. But this number has moved towards Missouri. So that kind of tells me that as that news has come out, people are confident in the depth that Missouri has and or that was already priced into the opening number. I'm not really sure, but the number opening Wake Forest -3, and now it's at Wake Forest -1. Those decisions haven't really affected the spread, and that means a lot because you've seen these decisions affect all the other spreads. We've already talked about a lot of them, like that Oregon State, Florida situation. So the fact that it's not, had it been Wake Forest -3 and then got out to 4 or 5, now you're thinking, oh, those were some key guys that are making those decisions. But as it is, that's not what we've seen. Sideline says this should be Wake Forest -1.2. So Sideline says it's priced pretty well. We're going to take the one with Missouri. Cousin Jared, before I turn it over to you, I think I'm going to give you the real quick and simple pitch on this one, and it's mediocre SEC team, mediocre ACC team. Don't overthink it.
Sure. You took the words right out of my mouth. I don't have much to add to it outside of that. You mentioned the weather. Definitely the over is something I would be eyeing, especially if this dropped down to like, I don't know, 59, maybe 58, something like that. Obviously, the closer we get, want to double check the weather on that one. I do think this one would probably be a little more high scoring, but just with what we know about the weather right now, I think that just 61 is a little too many points. So I think your analysis is spot on why I would go with Missouri here, but maybe check back as we get closer to game time and, see what the weather's like. And then if the total's dropped a little bit, you could talk me into the over in this one as well.
Wake really struggling down the stretch. They lost that Louisville game, and that game got all sorts of weird with all the turnovers, but you can't take those turnovers away. Now, you can say those turnovers probably all shouldn't have happened in the same quarter, right? But maybe they should have been scattered throughout the season a little bit differently, but you can't completely take all this away. They lost to NC State, who at that point of the season, still a good defense, but no offense, kind of like this Missouri team. They lost to North Carolina at home, a North Carolina team that also down the stretch faded. So that loss looked decent at the time, but given what North Carolina did after that, less so. Barely beat Syracuse, gave up 35 points to a Syracuse team that crumbling down the stretch, and then lost to Duke. No, not that bad. We've been on Duke all season, but again, this Duke team kind of like this Missouri team with regards to overall talent levels. So just seeing the last half of the season from Wake Forest doesn't really inspire any confidence to say they can do anything against Missouri. I think the last thing I want to say on this is Missouri's not a sexy team to back for sure. I just think a lot of that is relative to all the other really good football teams in the SEC. And to be fair, all the other good teams that they're near location-wise in the Big Ten and in the Big 12. They're kind of sandwiched between a bunch of good football teams in the conference and geography, and obviously a bunch of not as good teams as well. But they're not as good as Kansas State. They're not as sexy as Kansas. They're not as good at, as Purdue, right? You talk about that. They're not as good as a bunch of teams in the SEC, right? But the ACC is really bad. And I think that if you overthink this, you're thinking about, Missouri's not that good. Missouri's not that good relative to a lot of things. Relative to the ACC, they're probably not any different than a lot of these ACC teams. So I think Missouri makes a lot of sense here to back. We're going to grab the +1 there. Money line's about -105 right now. Those are probably pretty comparable picks. I gave it to Cousin Jared. I said, hey, Cousin Jared, you want to take the -105? You want to take the +1? And you told me to take the +1. So that's what we're doing on the official picks.
If this crossed, I don't know why it would, but if this crossed over into plus territory, like, +101, +102, something like that, I would be on the money line at that point. I have no idea what this would get to +105. That would be like great if I can get +105 in Missouri. But if it's just -103 on the money line, I'd rather just take the point.
Yeah, you never really know in some of these bowl games if somebody decides to go for too late, especially Wake Forest with their offense could easily decide, our defense is terrible. We scored late to tie it up. Don't kick the extra point. Let's go for 2. Let's try to win it. And at that point, if they miss, either way, we're good. If they get it, at least we've got the push with Missouri. So it's kind of maybe some thinking there about grabbing the +1. To Saturday, only one Saturday game here. This is Christmas Eve. So this is the Hawaii Bowl, Middle Tennessee and San Diego State. San Diego State is a 7-point favorite. I kind of can't see why they're a 7-point favorite. San Diego State last year was a pretty good team. This year, not really. I mean, they were okay, and they had some stretches. Still a solid defense, but Southern ranks them 78th, and Middle Tennessee, obviously not good either, but ranks them 96th. The difference between the 78th ranked team and the 96th ranked team, I don't see how that's a full touchdown. Sideline says it should be 4.3. You've got a pair of 7 and 5 teams, and I'm willing to give that San Diego State's a little bit better, but I don't really think they're a lot better. We're going to grab the 7 with Middle Tennessee out on the islands. Cousin Jared, what else you got for us?
I'm never going to pass up taking a touchdown in a spot like this. Of all the bowl games that are played every year, no game has as many distractions as this game, because who's really going out there to play this game? It's not really about that at all. It's just about being in Hawaii and, I'm going to play a football game while I'm out here. So I think the variance is high here. I think getting a touchdown is great. I'm sure that you will mention this at some point, but hey, if you wanted to put a little bit of money on the Middle Tennessee State money line here, probably not a bad idea either. This feels like one of those games where one team doesn't show up almost every year, it seems. And so who knows? It feels like 50-50 is going to be, San Diego State. So, but anyway, I'm not going to pass up getting a touchdown. Like you said, 7 points seems like too many for these two teams. San Diego State has looked great at times, but they've also looked atrocious at times. Their offense has looked terrible, and then it looked great, and it looked terrible again. And
same with Middle Tennessee State, which is, again, they're both bad. Why is it a 7-point spread, right?
Yeah. So put the 7 points in your back pocket. If you wanted to split your bets up a little bit here and do like 80% on taking the 7 points and then like 20% on the money line, I don't think that's the craziest thing either.
Yeah, I would definitely endorse that as well. And I love the tradition of playing the Christmas Eve game. It's a game that's routinely on my television on Christmas Eve, despite family happenings. And it's great because 1 out of every 3 years or so, it's a close game, and we're going to watch some football tonight. It's an interesting one. And about 2 out of every 3 years, by the half, you can turn it off and just focus on the family and say, what, football game's garbage, moving on with life, right? And more times than not, that's the way it goes. Like you said, one team doesn't show up, so who knows which one it'll be. And if it is one of those close games, you'll want the 7. And given we don't know which one might not show up, the plus odds on the money line makes a lot of sense. So definitely the way I'd recommend playing that one. Again, San Diego State probably the better team, but not by 7 points worth, which will take us to the day after Christmas. We're going to wrap up with the Monday game, just like we did for this last one, cover the Monday afternoon game on this episode, and then we will leave the Tuesday and on games for the next episode. The coup de grace of bowl season, New Mexico State, first bowl game in, I don't know, ever. It seems like. And Bowling Green, first bowl game in quite a long time as well. Bowling Green is a 3.5-point favorite. This one will be up in Ford Field in Detroit. Diego Pavia for New Mexico State got Heisman votes. First New Mexico State player ever to do that. Just let that sink in. Has entered the transfer portal and was banged up, but as of last report a couple days ago, was already up to 90%, expects to be 100% by game time, and expects to play. One of the rare situations where his name technically is in the transfer portal, but he's going to play. I don't know the guy, haven't tweeted at him. Also, please don't tweet at athletes. Just especially kids. There's just no reason to do that. So I have no idea what his thinking is. I don't know if it's if I play, if he wants to play well so that he can get a better offer to move up, if he's just doing it to keep his options open, I have no idea. But from all accounts, he has said he is planning on playing after his name was put in the transfer portal. So we know that's a thing, but we do expect him to play. He's obviously been a huge difference maker for this New Mexico State team, which has been a great story. Cousin Jared, we're going to take the 3.5 points in a game that Sideline says should be Bowling Green it should be New Mexico State -1. You've got the 119th ranked team. I feel like I buried the lead here. You got the 119th ranked team in New Mexico State and the 122nd ranked team in Bowling Green, according to Sideline. Bad football.
What other sport could have two terrible teams participate in their postseason except college football?
This would be the equivalent of like Green Bay and Alcorn State playing in the opening round of March Madness. It would be like well, I'm going to watch it, but
Yeah.
why are we here, right? Like the opening round games are rough, but they're not this bad, right?
Yeah.
This is the joys of college football. Because we're going to take the 3.5 with New Mexico State. The model loves this pick. Tell us also why we are on this.
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you to what bowl did we say this was? The one in Detroit?
The Quick Lane Bowl.
Quick Lane Bowl. I want to say thank you to the Quick Lane Bowl for giving our friends in Canada something to watch on Boxing Day, because I know that they're going to be real excited to watch this New Mexico State Bowling Green.
Premier League's back on Boxing Day.
Okay, well, there you go. The other thing I would say is this game.
Canada's a soccer country now that they made the World Cup.
Yeah, sure. And I think they still dabble in hockey last time I checked. I think that what I would describe this game as is like a solar eclipse. And it's one of those things that, like, when it passes by, you've just got to go out and look at it. And I've got the chance to take 3.5 points and back New Mexico State in a bowl game for the first time in, I don't know. I feel like they made a bowl game in like 2014 or 2015 or something like that. But before that, and I don't know how many years. So it's just like with the solar eclipse, I'm going to go out and I'm going to watch the eclipse. I'm going to take my monies and I'm going to back New Mexico State at plus 3.5, just because this is one of those things you want to be able to tell your grandchildren about, that I was there and I was able to back New Mexico State in the Quick Lane Bowl in December of 2022.
Yes, New Mexico State made a bowl game in 2017. They made the Arizona Bowl. I believe that was one of those games that was like only streamed online, which is probably why it escaped my memory from happening. But before that, the previous bowl game was 1960. So there are probably some people watching this who were alive in 1960. There probably weren't a ton of people around who vividly remember that. I feel like most people watching this were probably kids. Maybe you remember it, but it probably wasn't on TV. And you probably didn't care about New Mexico State. So there might be a couple of people watch this, but otherwise, it's not like today. Like today, I do feel like there are 9-year-old kids who might remember something, 50 years from now, whatever, because all the games are on TV. We're talking about. I don't feel like those were the times. I guess it was over 60 years ago now. There's probably not a lot of people who vividly remember this game happening.
And if anybody is wondering why I participate in this show, it's because I can tell you within 2 or 3 years the last time that New Mexico State had a bowl off the top of my head. So I am a sick individual.
Yeah, I mean, just some quick math here. The kids playing in that game, let's say they were 18 years old in 1960, would have been born in 1942. So the people playing in that game are 80 years old right now. So again, some of them, if you're watching the show, I'm sure you're happy. Thanks for watching. We're glad you're here. We're pulling for your alma mater because we're going to back them with the 3.5 points. But again, quite an occurrence. And Bowling Green, again, having a long drought as well. So I don't want to take anything away from that. They're going to be motivated as well. It's not about motivation. Both teams will show up excited and ready to play. It's just, if this was 2.5, I don't know what to do with that, right? That's a little bit tougher situation. But north of 3, I think this is kind of a no-brainer. And kind of like a broken record, maybe dabble on the money line, because some of these games are just really hard to predict. The teams are relatively close to each other. Taking the plus odds makes a lot of sense. Again, we're assuming that Pavia is going to play. That's by all accounts. It's what he has said since entering the transfer portal. If for some reason that changed at the last minute, that really affects this. But I feel fairly confident from everything I've heard. He's going to actually play in this game, and that means the world to New Mexico State. So getting the 3.5 there is a pick that we're going to make to wrap up this set of bowl games. Again, that's through December 26th through Boxing Day, and then we'll come back a week from now with the bowl games from the 27th all the way through New Year's Eve. That one will be a little bit longer than this one because we'll have a whole lot more games to cover. But other than that, Cousin Jared, any parting words?
Enjoy the last bit of college football that we have, because it's quickly coming to an end. So no matter how bad the games may be, keep track of them. Enjoy it while we have it.
Yep, absolutely. And to follow up on the inside joke about Christmas movies, if you're interested in Cousin Jared's Christmas movie recommendation, join us on Discord, and he can talk all day about Hallmark Christmas movies, apparently, if that's something that you need information about. Yeah,
if you are so inclined and want me to rant, just pose the question and I'll throw some stuff out there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the biggest question that everyone asks, right, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? I feel like that's the one this time of year that everybody asks is yes or no, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? So I guess what's your answer to that?
I lean towards no, but I understand that I'm often in mixed company and people have differing opinions on that. So I like to address it. I will discuss it in the context of Christmas movies, but I am not necessarily a believer that it is a Christmas movie.
A man of the people there, always trying to
Yeah.
bridge the divisions among us.
Yes.
I will say I kind of agree with you. In my mind, Christmas is the centerpiece of the movie,
Mhm.
rather than just it's something that happened around Christmas, and or that a key part of the movie happened only because it was Christmas and you can't sub in another holiday. So I tend to say Die Hard's not a Christmas movie because
Yeah.
the holiday party that it was around could have easily been a 4th of July party. And I think the plot plays out basically the same. But again, if you want to view it as a
Yeah.
Christmas movie, I want to bring joy to this time of year and enjoy your
Yeah.
Christmas movie. And I'm perfectly happy.
Well, I'm glad you went down this road because I want to talk about Holiday. Holiday is a great movie. You need to stream it. It's a wonderful movie. I watched it with my wife, she and I have very different senses of humor. We both enjoyed this movie, but it starts at Christmas and goes through all of the holidays the rest of the year and also ends at Christmas. So I believe that it is a Christmas movie because it both begins and ends at Christmas. It starts there, kind of everything resolves at Christmas. And so it covers all the other holidays, but it begins and ends at Christmas. And so to me, it's a Christmas movie. Anyway, that's my recommendation for this holiday season is Holiday.
There you go. I've never even heard of it. So you come for the college football picks and you end up with a movie recommendation that you and a friend or a significant other or a special person in your life can enjoy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we've got. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can enjoy all the sports betting content we provide on this channel. It's jumped right into your feed. We'll be back again all week with more college basketball betting content. And again, 7 days from now with more college football bowl game content. Until we see you again, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money